Welcome to Hump Day Wednesday, October 25th, 2023, your day weather podcast brought to you by Cowboy State Daily, Wyoming's only daily newspaper. Check them out at cowboystatedaily.com and subscribe to their digital email newsletter. Well, storm number one is taking shape, as you'll see here in a minute. So the first wave is going to bring a lot of winter weather to the Pacific Northwest, Montana, western and northern Wyoming today, and into North Dakota, and across southern Alberta, British Columbia, and Saskatchewan with snow and very cold temperatures. So those areas getting the first wave going about as expected. So if you're in those areas, you know what I'm talking about. Colder air from this system will spill into the rest of Wyoming, Nebraska, Colorado, Utah, and into Kansas and elsewhere as we get into tonight, but especially Thursday. If you're not in storm number one, you're going to feel the cold from it tomorrow and into Friday. There's a bit of a gap on Friday. Friday's kind of a gap day between the storm number one moving through and then the next storm that's going to come through and take more of a southerly route. That's when southern and eastern Wyoming, Nebraska, parts of Utah and Colorado, late Friday, and especially during the day Saturday, you're going to see snow and sharply colder temperatures moving through. I don't see this as a huge snow event in terms of inches, but we're going to see snow go right down I-80 and parts of I-25 of Wyoming into Colorado, I-70 into Colorado, I-80 into Nebraska. So it's going to be enough to be a travel headache. It won't be a big snow dump on the plains, but we're going to have enough to be a problem for traveling because it's going to be so cold. The air with this system is extremely cold, and it's going to stick deep into next week. So this is going to be the longest cold snap of the season for sure. And as we've mentioned before, hunters, travelers, and livestock interests, be prepared for the change. Taking place, changes yesterday up in the northern Bighorn Basin of Wyoming with some low clouds in advance of storm number one up there. And say goodbye to those leaves. They're going to be leaving us real soon after this weekend. The satellite imagery this morning showing very well the structure of what's going on. You can see the low here just west of Seattle spinning around right there. We see a very strong jet stream coming on in. And we also see that other low. Remember last week we were talking about the interaction between these two low pressure systems and whether or not they would merge or stay separate? Well, they're staying separate. So this will allow this storm to be a separate entity. Coming in across the Gulf of Alaska, some really cold air. That's what you're seeing with those low clouds, that blue patch right there. Also, we see advancing more cold air up in the higher latitudes coming in and getting queued up behind the storm. Then you can see storm number one forming right here. These strong jet stream winds coming across the Pacific are transporting moisture and going up and over the colder air coming out of Canada. Just a perfect setup. We call that overrunning. And then right here, you can see the remains of what was Hurricane Norma coming up into the Corn Belt and Midwest, bringing in a swath of rain there. And you can see that on the radar this morning. Here's the snow across Montana, the rain coming into the Pacific Northwest, and then this arch of moisture coming up into the Midwest. So there's a lot going on across the nation right now. Here are the winter weather advisories and warnings for the northern tier. Significant rain here. This is a wind advisory, high wind warning for the high elevations of Interstate 80. So the maps are starting to get a lot more busy. This is where we're going to be noon today. You just saw that low there on the satellite imagery. Here's the low coming up out of the south, bringing the rain up there. And here's all of those wind barbs coming in from the due north, piling up the cold air at the U.S.-Canadian border, ready to make its move into the U.S. Here's the precipitation forecast through 6 p.m. Thursday. So you'll see there will be some showers developing on the southern edge of the system, mainly tomorrow. But all of the action is up north, and there's the snowfall forecast through the next 48 hours. Very, very impressive. Here's the temperature anomaly by the same time, 6 p.m. Thursday. So you can see how far south the cold air advances. It gets right to the Wyoming-Colorado border by 6 p.m. Thursday. But areas north of that will feel the cold tomorrow. And look at the cold spilling into California, spilling into the Great Basin, all the way down into Arizona as the cold air is also coming down both sides of the divide. This is by late Saturday, round number 2. The winds are coming in from the due north, as you're seeing right there. That's going to lead to the cold continuing to come. And then we have the same situation. Strong, moist jet stream winds coming up over on top of that cold air right over southern Wyoming, northern Colorado, and western Nebraska. And there it is. Storm system number 2. That's why you see the precipitation aligning southwest to northeast. Those strong jet stream winds that are moist and energetic, causing lift in the atmosphere, going up and over the colder air that will be spilling down along and east of the divide. This is a setup. It's going to bring heavy snow to Colorado mountains. The mountains of southern Wyoming will see significant snow. And this is why we talked about Interstate 80 and I-25 having some travel impacts, I-70 in the mountains of Colorado. So there's going to be travel impacts in that late Friday, Saturday time frame. And very cold air and light snow will fall elsewhere behind storm number 2 as that Arctic air, and it is going to be Arctic air, continues to move south. You can see how far south the snow is going to be getting with this system. And as we mentioned at the beginning, not huge amounts of snow, but enough to be a problem because the snow will stick and the roads are going to get really icy. The pavements initially are going to be warm, then they'll be melting, and then there will be freezing. Speaking of freezing, these are the overnight lows forecasted by sunrise Monday. The gray you see are actually sub-zero temperatures. So you can see the high mountain valleys are likely going to go below zero. We've got teens. We're going to see single digits. Look how far south those freezing temperatures go into Texas. And this is Monday morning. This is Tuesday morning, even colder. Look at the sub-zero temperatures here in western North Dakota and eastern Montana, the high mountain valleys. So we're talking about some really cold nights, Saturday night, but especially Sunday night, and also Monday night. So that's going to make for a very cold Halloween. There are your temperature anomalies for trick-or-treat time on Tuesday for Halloween. Unless you're going to go trick-or-treating in Florida or Southern California, bundle up. It's going to be really cold elsewhere. Look how cold it is north-south from the Canadian border all the way down into Mexico. A very impressive late October cold wave. We'll have more for you tomorrow. Have a good Wednesday.